He got on his knees in the flower bed, a spade in his nervous hands. Work, he thought, work and forget. He glanced up from the garden to the Martian mountains. He thought of the proud old Martian names that had once been on those peaks. Earthmen dropping from the sky had gazed upon hills, rivers. Martian seats left nameless in spite of names. Once Martians had built cities, named cities, climbed mountains, named mountains, sealed seas, named seas. Mountains melted, seas drained, cities tumbled. In spite of this, the Earthmen had felt a silent guilt at putting new names on these ancient hills and valleys. All right, so here's a contrast and contradiction type question. So remember, you're going to basically kind of find the opposite of what's reality within this question. All right, so in paragraph 42, highlight text that comments on similarities between Martian and human civilization. So we're going to do that in just a second. So I'm looking at my inferencing question. What comment about present-day human civilization might Bradbury be making by having Bittering think about Martian civilizations? All right, so I'm going back to paragraph 42. So basically, there's a lot of information within paragraph 42. So this part right here, once Martians had built cities, named cities, climbed mountains, named mountains. I'm going to highlight these sentences here because he's thinking about how the Martians live versus how humans live. All right, so I'm going back to my question. What comment about present-day human civilization might Bradbury be making by having Bittering think about Martian civilization? So, basically, think about this. Both Martians and humans probably share that similarity where we built places, we have named places, we have climbed mountains, sailed seas. So, the fact that Martians did these things and their cities, mountains, and seas, they're gone. So think about present day. This might suggest that human civilization could also come to an end and disappear. So basically, he's thinking about the similarities between both Martians and humans. So I'm going to go ahead and type in here. I can say that both Martians and humans have similarities. Period. I can say that, like what I just said, both built cities, named cities, climbed mountains. Basically, these are things that both are done. Both built cities, named cities, climbed mountains, sailed seas. If Martians did this and disappeared, humans can do the same thing. So what I'm going to put in here, I'm trying to get my thoughts together so I can make sure my answer makes sense. Both built cities, named cities, climbed mountains. This tells that if Martians did these things like humans can have the same fate. Grow, then disappear. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and keep going. I'm going to keep reading. Nevertheless, man lives by symbol and label. The names were given. Mr. Bittering felt alone in his garden under the Martian sun. And here's a new word, anachronism. If you are not sure, anachronism, something placed outside its proper time period. Bent here, planting earth flowers in wild soil. Think, keep thinking, different things. Keep your mind free of earth, the atom war, the lost rockets. He perspired. He glanced about. No one watching. He removed his tie. Pretty bold, he thought. First off your coat, now your tie. He hung it neatly on a peach tree he had imported as a sapling from Massachusetts. So this is giving you more information about Mr. Bittering. He returned to his philosophy of names and mountains. The Earthmen had changed names. Now there were Hormel Valleys, Roosevelt, and remember your hyperlinks here, Roosevelt Seas, Ford Hills, Vanderbilt Plateaus, Rockefeller Rivers on Mars. It wasn't right. The American settlers had shown wisdom, using old Indian prairie names. Wisconsin, Minnesota, Idaho, Ohio, Utah, Milwaukee, Waukegan, Oseo. The old names, the old meanings. Staring at the mountains wildly, he thought, aren't you up there? All the dead ones, you Martians? Well, here we are, alone, cut off. Come down, move us out. We're helpless. The wind blew a shower of peach blossoms. And notice how this, even though he's in his fearful, thoughtful mood, there's a sense of calmness and aloneness there. So keep that in mind. He put out his sun-browned hand and gave a small cry. He touched the blossoms and picked them up. He turned them. He touched them again and again. Then he shouted for his wife, Cora! She appeared at the window. He ran to her. Cora, these blossoms! She handled them. Do you see? They're different. They've changed. They're not peach blossoms anymore. Look all right to me, she said. They're not. They're wrong. I can't tell how. An extra petal, a leaf, something, the color, the smell. The children ran out in time to see their fathers hurrying about the garden, pulling up radishes, onions, and carrots from their beds. Cora, come look. They handled the onions, the radishes, the carrots among them. Do they look like carrots? Yes? No? She hesitated. I don't know. They're changed. So here's another question. In paragraphs 53 through 63, highlight the text that describes how the plants are changing. So I'm going to do that in just a second. So I'm looking at my question also. Is Bittering's concern about the changing plants realistic? Why do you think the author introduces this detail? So I'm going back up. I'm going to start with 55. 55 I think was a good spot. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this entire paragraph. So he's looking at the change. And I'm looking even here at 57. I'm highlighting that. He's noticing those changes. So I'm going back to my question. So the question asks, is Bittering's concern about the changing plants realistic? Why do you think the author introduces this detail? So from that, rise in action in the story, this is like kind of building suspense. So kind of keep that in mind. So Mr. Bittering, he's having all these concerns. He's having all these wild thoughts. And he's becoming more frantic about them living on Mars. So basically he's saying that since they have basically settled on Mars, the plants are going to settle also. So I'm going to put this answer here. Plants are slowly changing with its environment. And kind of bring out your knowledge about science and how plants and animals adapt to their environments. And basically, that's probably what's happening with these plants. So, with this, Mr. Bittering notices change and it's sudden. So he's in shock. So I can say Bittering notices these changes and is shocked to find that these changes are happening quickly. Period. So I'm kind of keeping that in mind. So there are events happening in this story that's going to create suspense. It's going to create tension. It's going to create that shock factor. So kind of keep those things in mind. So I'm going to go ahead and keep reading. Perhaps you know they have onions but not onions, carrots but not carrots, taste the same but different, smell not like it used to be. He felt his heart pounding and he was afraid. He dug his fingers into the earth. Cora, what's happening? What is it? We've got to get away from this. He ran across the garden. Each tree felt his touch. The roses, they're turning green. And there's a picture of your rose. Pictures tells a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going. And they stood looking at the green roses. And 2 days later, Dan came running. Come see the cow. I was milking her and I saw it. Come on. They stood in the shed and looked at their one cow. It was growing a third horn. All right, evolution is taking its place. Things are changing. They're adapting to their new surroundings. And the lawn in front of their house was quietly and slowly was coating itself like spring violets. Seed from earth, but growing up a soft purple. We must get away, said Bittering. We'll eat this stuff and we'll change. Who knows to what? So remember what I said, humans turn into something else. I can't let it happen. There's only one thing to do. Burn this food. It's not poison, but it is stubbly, very stubbly, a little bit, a very little bit. We mustn't touch it. So I'm going to go ahead and look at this question. In paragraph 70 through 73, highlight the sentence that identified Bittering's latest fear. So I'm going back to, I think, yeah, right here. Paragraph 71. I'm going to highlight this part here only because he feels like since all of the other life things are changing, they're going to change. So basically, he is fearful that they are going to change into something else. All right, so I can put here, Bittering was fearful of his family changing since the other living things on Mars are changing. So his new fear is creating an impact. So basically his fears are, is a threat to him. He's fearing what's going to happen. So the mood changes to threatening. The mood changes to threatening. All right. So kind of keep that in mind. His fears are becoming more and more frantic.